All right, so wow. The Chicago Bears lose on Sunday Night Football with a score of 13-19. And yet again, a game where we just really didn't expect this to happen. Last week, something similar where we won in a way that we didn't really expect, or at least most people didn't expect to happen. And this week was the same. And this week is very interesting. This game was very interesting because it's not the loss to the Texans, who are arguably a Super Bowl contending team this year. The fact that we lost to them is not what really gets me, because even I predicted in my last video, you guys want to check that out, I actually predicted us to lose 34-20. And we kept that team to 19 points, and we only put up 13, which is obviously, if you're putting up 13 points of offense, you're not going to win any game. But the matter of the fact is we only lost to the Texans by 6 points. And on top of that, we could have won this game I wouldn't say very easily, but it was very achievable because of the fact that our defense only allowed 19 points of offense from CJ Stroud, who is honestly my pick to win MVP this year. And guys, this is going to be really hard to just to stay positive about this, but I don't want to overreact too much. So I'm just going to go over the positives first, and then I'm going to get to the negatives because there are a lot of negatives. And honestly, the hardest thing about this video that I'm recording right now is me keeping this within at least a reasonable time frame. Because honestly, if I didn't have a time limit here, I could keep going on for hours about how bad things are looking for the Bears right now. But let's start off with the positives, which is my first positive is Caleb did show improvement from week one. Now, I'm not saying that he did great. I'll get to the negative part of it. But I did see improvement. I did see more anticipation in his throws. I did see the fact that he was able to move the ball down the field a lot easier than he did against the Titans, because he only had 93 yards passing in week one, and he almost topped that within the first half of this game. So there is improvement, even though it wasn't a whole lot. There was slight improvement on Caleb's part. Obviously, we'll get to why that didn't fully flourish. But the second positive being our defensive line is actually a lot better than I thought. I thought, honestly, if you would have told me from the beginning of the season that the defensive line was way better than the offensive line, I'm not just talking about better, but way better than our offensive line, I would have said you're crazy. I know that, we've got breakout players like Javon Dexter, we have Montez Sweat in there, but aside from those two players, we didn't really have, on paper, we don't have much. And yet, we still sacked CJ Stroud 3 times. We still got a decent amount of pressure on a lot of his dropbacks. So far this season, we've done pretty well against defensive lines. Yeah, we're not going against the Eagles or the Lions, but we've done decent. On top of that, our secondary is still top 3. Honestly, our defense is just top 3. I'm going to say it right now until I'm proven otherwise. I know Nico Collins went off against us, but 125 yards and a touchdown, great by him, but literally no other part of the Texans offense did really anything. We actually held Tank Dell, I believe, to negative yards receiving. I think -3. I mean, this dude was just locked up, and this dude is supposed to be, CJ Stroud's top connection, or one of his top connections. So the fact that we did that just shows that we are a top defense. But now let's get to the negatives. And we're going to start right back with the quarterback and Caleb Williams. Man, I don't know how this happened, but the inaccuracies with Caleb are seriously concerning. Unbelievably concerning, because it's more so concerning because this wasn't a problem in college. I would understand if we had drafted him with around where JJ McCarthy was for a second. Let's just say we had the 10th pick and we drafted a guy like Caleb who had accuracy issues in college, and we would kind of figure, okay, that's already part of his issues, so we'll just try to coach that out of him. But he didn't have that in college. Was he the most accurate passer of all time? No. But he was pretty accurate. And now he looks like he's every game of these past 2 games, he's been missing a lot of throws that I believe 95% of the quarterbacks in this league would have made. And for some reason, he is not hitting those throws. And because of that, we are missing on so many big plays. The missed throw to DeAndre Carter on the left sideline, where he did a good job stepping out of the pocket, stepping out of pressure, and it was a nice floater, but it was just out of reach. Once again, that's the second straight week that he misses DeAndre Carter on a deep shot that could have arguably have been a huge gain or at least a catch of some sort, maybe even a touchdown. But he's missing them. He's missed a few throws this game and these past 2 games, and it's concerning because it wasn't an issue. That tells me it's coaching. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if he's changing his throwing motion, if he's, if his footwork is just not good, or if he's just that nervous. I don't know what it is, but something is not clicking, and that needs to get fixed, man. The second negative, oh my God, Shane Waldron, dude. I will say he called a little bit of a better game than last week. It wasn't as terrible, I guess, but in terms of against the players he played, I don't think I really saw too much of an issue from, how it was week 1 where it was like a lot of like backups playing, but a lot of these outside runs, these outside horizontal type offense, like we could not do anything. First off, the run game, atrocious. I mean, we've gone from, over these past 2-3 years being one of the better run teams in football to being arguably the worst. I mean, DeAndre Swift can't get anything going. Khalil Herbert can't get anything going. None of our running backs can do anything on the ground. I mean, we are averaging probably less than 2 yards a carry throughout the year. And our leading rusher was Caleb Williams with 14 rushes. 14 rushes for 44 yards. Who does that remind you of? I'm sorry, but it reminds me a lot of Justin Fields, of him having to do it himself. We did not draft Caleb Williams number 1 overall and pass up on a bunch of trade offers that, we didn't trade away Justin Fields and pass up these trade offers so that we can have another Justin Fields having to run for his life every play and do it with his legs when we're drafting this guy to play the game with his arm. I'm tired of seeing that. And the fact that we can't get anything on the ground it pisses me off because really we have the personnel to do it and it's just not getting done. I know the Texans are a decent defense and all, but to have the kind of run game and run scheme and just the run production or the lack thereof of run game that we've had these past 2 games is so alarming. And if you cannot establish the run, you are going to have a very hard time being at least a competent offense this season. A lot of these plays just do not make sense on Shane Waldron, and I don't know what he's doing out there. I don't know what he's doing to even scheme up these guys to get open, but it is just unbelievable how bad our offense has been these past 2 weeks. And I get it's a rookie quarterback, but it's concerning. And now this is probably going to be my biggest rant. I hope to not go too long onto this, but the offensive line, man, the biggest hole on the team. And it's terrible because that is probably arguably the most important part about this team. The offensive line is what makes or breaks Caleb's season. Caleb was pressured 36 times out of 37 dropbacks. That's right. You heard that right. 36 out of 37 pass attempts, Caleb was pressured. I have never seen, you can't even replicate that in a video game in Madden. You have to actually try to be that bad. It is unbelievable how atrocious our offensive line was. And the worst part about it is it's not even the fact that we just don't have good guys there. I know we have bad guys like Nate Davis who played terrible. Our center's terrible, as it always will be. But we have Tevin Jenkins in there. We have Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright. And they might not be, Hall of Famers or anything, but they are much better than what they've shown these past 2 weeks and what they showed on Sunday. Absolutely unbelievable how atrocious these players collectively have been these past 2 weeks and how they were yesterday. Unbelievable. There is no sense of rhythm. There is no sense of awareness from where defensive linemen are coming from. The stunts are killing us. You have one guy going this way, one guy going this way, and as long as they have a guy going around each other, the Bears just don't know what to do. And a guy comes free every single time. And I quite literally mean every single time. 36 of 37 pressures. That is crazy. That will almost never be seen ever again from probably another NFL team. I guess the only good thing out of that, the only positive out of that is you quite literally cannot get worse than that. I guess you could having one more, pressure, but you almost quite literally cannot get worse than that. That is going to get Caleb killed. Caleb is not going to play, mark my words, Caleb is not going to play 17 games this season with that kind of offensive line play. I would be surprised if he is healthy by the time we start facing our division rivals in week 11. And that is concerning because the first half of the season is where we have so many of our easiest schedules, easiest teams to face. And If we don't capitalize off that and we still don't have an identity going into our division games, oh my goodness, we're going to be running into a gauntlet with our hands behind our back, essentially. We don't have anything to work with. I mean, how are you going to get Caleb to develop anything at all if you are getting pressured quite literally 99% of the time? It makes no sense. That starts with the coaching. Chris Morgan, he needs to go. I'm sorry. And I'm seeing from other players like Lucas Patrick, who was the highest graded Saint, was our bad center for us last year and doing really good with the Saints, and other players too that have just done better for other teams, but when they're here, they do terrible. And that tells you one thing. It's coaching. Our coaches are terrible. Chris Morgan, our offensive line coach, is terrible. I'm surprised he's still here after the whole, cleaning house with the whole coaches and stuff. I don't know how he survived all that, but man, absolutely terrible. And the main person, honestly, I know I said, coaching and all, but the main person this really falls on now, honestly, and I praise this man for so long for all his good things that he's done for this organization, but the main person this falls on is Ryan Poles. Oh my goodness. How much longer, Poles? How much longer are you going to wait to build this offensive line? How much longer are you going to wait to get us a damn center that can actually block? I'm tired of us signing fringe centers that were okay or below average on other teams and were just good enough to be signed to the Bears just to barely make the starting spot on an incredibly low bar. And then they come to Chicago and just do terrible. Like, what are we gaining from that? We don't have anything to gain from that other than just the fact that we're saving a couple extra dollars instead of signing, how about a Connor Williams who signed with the Seahawks, a guy who did really good with the Dolphins last year. And we very easily could have signed Connor Williams, and now he's doing great with the Seahawks. A center. We could really use a center right now. Honestly, we could use anybody at the offensive line. But my problem is that Ryan Poles is a former offensive lineman himself. He played offensive lineman in college and was on the Bears practice squad as an offensive lineman. He should know better than anybody that the game is won and done in the trenches. And I'm not just talking about defensive line here. Offensive line here is everybody's biggest worry right now. Because if the offensive line does not hold up, Caleb is cooked. And honestly, any quarterback, you could put Patrick Mahomes behind his offensive line, he is not beating the Texans. I'm sorry. He's not. Not with this kind of pressure. And if you want to argue that, go watch how Patrick Mahomes played against the Bucs in the Super Bowl back in 2020. Getting destroyed. That's exactly what Caleb had to deal with. Unbelievable. Ryan Poles, you have been here now 3 seasons. Well, you're in your 3rd season now. And the only significant upgrades you made to the offensive line is Darnell Wright, who I still have faith in. I know he had a bad game this past game, but I still have faith in him. He's allowed a couple, a bad game every once in a while. He's still a really young player. Braxton Jones was a decent 5th round steal. He's a solid starting talent. He actually didn't do as terrible as people want to say last night, but just the entire unit was terrible. But other than that, I mean, to have just those 2 upgrades on the offensive line, Tevin Jenkins was already there, but Nate Davis was terrible. I don't know what we're still waiting on cutting him for. It's not like we signed him to be the highest paid guard in NFL history. I mean, yeah, it was a decent amount of money, but is it really going to hurt you to cut him? To send a message to the rest of the offensive line and NFL players saying that if you don't perform, you're going to be cut? I don't care how much we paid you. Send a message, damn it. We are getting cooked out here. Caleb is getting ruined already. I don't want to overreact and say he's a bust and that he's not going to perform well ever again. And his glory days in college are behind him now. But I'm not going to say all that. But what I'm saying is if this is the kind of performance that we trot out there every week till week 18, I don't care who's behind at center. We are going to get destroyed. Offensively, there is almost no defensive line in the NFL right now that wouldn't get a sack on Caleb Williams because of how bad our offensive line is. I don't know what Ryan Poles is waiting on. Trade for somebody, sign somebody. The trade deadline is going to be around like week 8, week 9 this year. Ryan Poles, man. I would be very ecstatic if we can turn either the Panthers' 2nd round pick or our 2nd round pick, or even honestly, even our 1st round pick to go ahead and sign someone really good on the offensive line, a stud guard, a stud center, or a stud left tackle. I'm fine with right tackle with Darnell Wright for now. because he was drafted 10th overall last year. So I'm going to give him more chances. But honestly, everybody else on the offensive line is replaceable as of right now. Even Tevin Jenkins, which I don't know. By the way, man, Tevin Jenkins, his downfall needs to be studied. I mean, this dude was one of the most reliable players when healthy. That is obviously the case when healthy because he does have injury issues. But when healthy, he was probably our most reliable player on the offensive line. And now I'm more worried about him playing better than him being healthy. I mean, this dude, his past 3 games, and I'm counting week 18 of last year because he did terrible that game too. But, week 18, week 1 of this year, and week 2 of this year have been terrible. Like, absolutely terrible. And I have no idea what happened. Like, out of nowhere, he just fell off a map. I don't get it. I really hope Ryan Poles sees that and looks back on the tape and says, dear God, we got to fix something, and we got to fix something fast. I don't care what you got to do. I don't care if you got to overpay slightly or whatever. Get us some damn offensive linemen. There are guys out there that are going to be on the trading block. Find a way to get a team to give us one of their good players, one of their good offensive linemen. I know it's a lot easier said than done, but we got capital for it. We got draft capital. We've got draft picks. We got draft picks. We've got free agent money. We've got a lot of different things. There's no excuse that by the time this point around next season, I know I'm not saying that I'm down on this season, but I'm just saying there's no excuse by this point next season that we shouldn't have at least a solid amount of players on the offensive line and at least 2 upgrades on the offensive line. 2, and one of those better be center. One of our top 3 picks better be center next year. Or else if you trade, or you better trade for a good center. Or else Caleb's going to be ruined. Just like Trubisky, just like Fields, and just like the graveyard of quarterbacks that have come before them. We face the Colts next week. They sacked C.J. Stroud 4 times in week 1. I'm not really looking forward to it. I mean, honestly, it's really hard to look forward to a lot of things with how bad our offensive line is, but like I said, I guess the only positive thing is we can't do much worse just because it's almost statistically impossible to do worse than last week. Let me know what you guys think, man. What is your biggest concern with the Bears right now? Mine is offensive line. Plain and simple. If I just want to fix one thing from this game, we came so close to winning, but if I just want to fix one thing for the entire season, everything else is going to go to crap. Just fix the offensive line. And Ryan Poles, I am looking at you to do it. Let me know what you guys think. Bear down, I'm out.